Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks. And even though there's a month left on the year, I'm calling the competition to see who has managed to get the most experience inside World of Tanks that isn't in a Churchill. Why not in a Churchill, you might be asking? That's because the Churchill at tier 5, the Churchill 3 to be exact, has an experience multiplier of an extra 50%. Compared to every other vehicle in the game that is still here in 2025. So if any of you are trying to get the highest base experience or most experience on your team for any of your daily missions, and you can do it in a tier 5 vehicle, which you can for your daily missions, then the Churchill 3 is your key to being able to get that done very quickly if you want to be cheeky. We have the pleasure of watching Domsius, who is playing in their XM57, who I very much doubt for the rest of the year that anybody is going to be able to get more experience in any other vehicle than Domsius is able to do here today. Now, they are playing in an XM57. This vehicle is absolutely filthy. It was in last year's loot boxes, and I think it's even been sold once since then, and I believe it's getting the best kind of like average win ratio difference that you can have on a tier 8 vehicle, and that is because it's just so sickeningly good. You take kind of like a T95 style vehicle with, to be fair, not the best of lower plates, give it a semi-traversable turret, and this look how far the gun's able to go to the left and the right on this vehicle. The gun arc is actually 75 degrees to the left and 75 degrees to the right. It's pretty much as flexible as you can get, kind of like a T110E4 within that regard, without just kind of giving it a turret anyway. It also has a decent amount of gun depression, 7 degrees, so it kind of one-ups the T110E4, which I believe has 6 in that regard. And for some reason, Wargaming still decided to give it 630 alpha damage, and just whopping great armor on the front. It does have a few issues with the weak point specifically on top, and then of course if they get the side or the rear, but you know, if Wargaming had given it side and rear armor as well, then I think that you wouldn't be able to play anything else at tier 8. And honestly, sometimes I think, why would you want to play anything else at tier 8 rather than a vehicle like this? Because a lot of people only play tier 8 because they want to make credits. I personally prefer tier 9 because I feel like there's more variety and less +0, -0 matchmaking, which I personally don't enjoy. However, a lot of people just really enjoy that tier 8 matchmaking and how nice it is when you do get against those tier 7 tanks. Tier 8 doesn't feel like it's so sweaty. You don't often meet some tier 10s, although in this case, Domsius is actually playing against tier 10 vehicles. And would you expect anything else for the highest base experience game of 2025? No, of course not. Remember that when you're shooting at higher tier vehicles, you're actually getting an experience bonus. I think it's for every tier, it's a 10% experience bonus. So a shot into a tank that's 2 tiers higher than you is worth 20% more than if you're shooting a low tier tank, or a tank that's the same tier as you. I'm not sure if there's an XP penalty for going the other way. If anyone knows for sure, I can find it on the What Wiki. You know 100%, then do let me know in the comments down below. So the XM57 is just this absolute juggernaut. Huge penetration on its standard rounds of 270. But Domsius here is showing you what the gold rounds are capable of. And that is 315 millimeters of APCR penetration. Honestly, that would work on a tier... it would be good for a tier 9 tank destroyer. It would be playable on a tier 10 tank destroyer. 315 APCR is kind of the equivalent of about 330, maybe even 340 heat when you're hitting angled surfaces, unless they're angled by more than 70 degrees. That is, unless you can overmatch, right? And this thing has a big, old, meaty gun. We're talking about 155 millimeter, so you will be able to overmatch 50 millimeter plates, of which there are quite a lot of them in the game. For example, the forehead of a 60 TP, and this gun caliber is so large it can also manage to go through the top of a Super Conqueror turret if you're able to hit that plate on top. There are so many 50mm plates, which is why having these big old American guns is absolutely outrageous. And no more big and impressive than kind of like the 155s in the game, right? On an American tank. So the XM57 is kind of just this all-round apocalypse tank. And when you end up getting it into a position like this, where you've got this slant that just kind of goes up, it's kind of protecting the back weak point as well. And just look, what are you meant to do against that? Really? What are you meant to do against that? And it has big alpha, big penetration, flexible turrets, so it doesn't have to kind of like awkwardly expose itself around the corner and make more of its vehicle vulnerable. And this is kind of like just the dream position. So it's no wonder why Domsius is just chilling in this position and just clapping out 3,800 damage while only having one shot in return. Nearly found the shot on the M6Y there, not able to quite commit. Another thing that's bizarre about this vehicle is why Wargaming gave it such good turret traverse dispersion. It has 0.08, which means that you can turn the gun to the left and the right and the reticle barely blooms out. And that's useful because the aim time of this tank of 3 seconds is not great, and the accuracy of 0.43 is also not great as well. So you've got to watch out for that on this tank. There's so many different ways that you could set the XM57 up. Domsius is setting it up with, I guess, peak accuracy here outside of replacing the gun rammer for vents. Personally for me, you know, if you're using... Obviously, if Domsius is able to have such incredible games in this tank and they've got that level 3 experimental turbo, definitely something they should consider investing in would be a level 3 experimental aiming device as well to be able to improve the accuracy of this vehicle by an additional 5%. It would just be a flat-out upgrade on this tank. Or maybe even bond vents on this vehicle would still give you kind of like about 4 to 5% accuracy on this vehicle, while also improving the rate of fire and that view range. Because outside of a map like this, but of course you could have a second setup if you wanted to try and improve the view range, would be just absolutely wonderful to have that extra 5% view range that you get from those bond vents. But you know what, when you're clapping like this in close quarters combat, man, maybe even sometimes a durability and a turbo is wonderful on this tank. But the experimental turbo just giving you the best of both worlds there, right? With a little bit of gun handling as well. A dirty, wonderful module to use on this absolute juggernaut. And that's what you want to see, right? Big, fat, Japanese, all-you-can-eat buffets. It's like when I was in Tokyo earlier this year, and you just have those kind of like sushi conveyor belts, and you're just like, yeah, I'll just have a little bit more. Yeah, I'll just have a little bit more. I'll have a little bit more. I'll have another little bit more. And you know what? When the plates literally just roll out as easily as that, and maybe there's even like a special going on in-house, yeah, you just can't say no to a little bit more tasty Japanese heavy. Well, what about double dipping? I guess that one's for dessert, right? As Sir Spunk Monkey on the enemy team, unfortunately just gets shut down after their platoon mate. Yes, Rear Biscuit, I think that's the PG version, also gets shut down as well. And now we have Domsius aiming for, I guess, the Amarak on the T110E5 there. Bold, as that lurch nearly made it so they would have actually missed the shot. In this situation, there's just so much that these rounds can do. Look at that, almost through just the upper plate there. Literally just, that wasn't even aimed particularly wonderfully, but just absolutely shuts down the T110E5. And that is what you can do with 315mm of gold APCR rounds. You can be fighting heavy tanks that are 1 tier higher, heavy tanks that are 2 tiers higher. And while they were definitely focused on trying to get rid of the valiant T110E5, who's called Andre, who held them off for as long as they did, the XM57 just this all-round juggernaut to be able to shut down the situation. Now up to 7,000 damage, and there's still a lot left to do in this game. Ooh, a bit of a rushed shot there, big misplay. Unfortunately losing 400 hit points to the M6Y, with I guess the higher alpha damage gun in that scenario. The M6Y turns around for the BZ68, the BZ68 comes and finishes them off. And I love the way that Domsius is also a really thoughtful teammate. Did you see how they gave a thumbs up to the T110E5 who was tanking for them there and went down kicking and screaming? And then also just gave a thank you to the BZ68 for getting them out of that tricky situation. So just because they're playing a morally dubious, overpowered, pay-to-win tank doesn't mean they can't be a nice guy, ladies and gents. And that's exactly what we are seeing here. I like it. The kind of person who will use all of the tools at their disposal. And why wouldn't you, right? Just because it's an XM57 doesn't mean that you shouldn't be playing it. But still does it with a swagger. And does it while still being a gentleman. At least not a gentleman to the enemy team, however, as Domsius picks up their 6th kill and turns their attention towards the turtle. But unfortunately for Domsius, they're actually running low on ammo. They fired every single one of their gold rounds this game, and now they're down to those, stinky regular rounds. How am I ever going to play with that? Oh, it still looks like it works. A Sky Noob on the enemy team gets shut down in their turtle. So, guys, are you starting to see why this is what I'm saying has to be the highest base experience of any vehicle in the year? Well, it starts to get a little bit more sweet, and that is the T100 LT here is AFK. So Domsius has actually switched to an HE round and used the indicator to try and find a shot. Will they penetrate that T100 LT? They actually don't. They only do like 460 damage to the vehicle. So they're still going to go for another HE shell. Will this one penetrate? They're looking for the shot. The armor flashlight, we can see they're saying it's a big green area about the tracks. Boom. No, it doesn't pen again. So now Domsius, frustrated, loads an AP shell. But that's probably actually the wrong move now, because you kind of need that HE shell. You're whiffing your shells, Domsius. Come on. You've had an incredible game in that 7,500 damage before you found the AFK T100. Is Domsius going to HE switch here? Yeah, intuition. Okay. Third time's the charm, Domsius, right? And there you go. No low roll there. And even without the 1,700 AFK damage here, this game was still a monstrous 7k against higher tier tanks. But luckily, with the T100 being AFK, Domsius now, I guess, just rolling with the momentum that they feel that they have. But mate, you're going against a Leopard prototype, a Borask, and a Charioteer. Is it the right play to go in here? Well, probably, you know. The BZ-68 applies some pressure on the cap, the Emil locking down a position, but Domsius now is in a world of hurt. Realizes that they could be able to get hit from the east in this situation, and instead pulls back to be able to avoid their flank being exposed. But unfortunately, not the fastest of tanks backwards, even with the experimental turbo on this tank. So Domsius just decides, okay, I got to move now before they try to flank me. So turns the vehicle around, exposing the whole of the bottom of the XM57, and now tries to get into the cap circle to try and win the game. Because, you know, you might be on 9,000 damage. You're clearly going to be a top player here, and they've destroyed a heavy tank. So might as well take the victory town as well. Okay, nice easy game. That's it, right? All done. Couple tanks in the cap. BZ-68 safe. Domsius looks around to make sure they're not going to get flanked, but uh-oh. It just got real, guys. A couple shots come in. BZ-68 interrupted. Domsius leaves the cap circle, gets spotted, clearly now feeling that they're going to be located up on the high ground there and towards the bushes. Tries to get towards the corner, trying to figure out what to do. Maybe get your butt into cover there. Maybe that would be a good position. But unfortunately, no, with 2 minutes sounding off now, I think the play is to still be able to cap. So Domsius now chooses a new position with a fallen tree and a bush, which might be able to help them out here. And I guess all they have to worry about is probably the angle over here. So maybe if they got a little bit more forwards, I think they probably could have still been okay. But the fallen tree is a bit of a precarious situation. So there we go. Leopard prototype spotted out. Domsius claps them down. Do they get spotted in this situation? Yes, they do. And I guess they're just going to have to hope now that the Charioteer or the Borask is unable to go through the front of their armor. The Borask goes through the side with a regular round, bounces the second round, and a Charioteer bounces as well. Domsius looking for the Charioteer, knowing the Borask is reloading, decides the cap is no longer going to happen, pings the position where the Charioteer is going to be to hope that their Emil is going to be able to make the flanking play. And now, with 1 minute left on the game, it's all to play for. Domsius drops the hammer there on a moving Borask, shuts them down. The BZ-68 just hiding at the back of the map, now on a one-shot, looking for the Charioteer, and Domsius on 246 hit points pings the corner to tell the Emil to be able to make their way through. The Emil able to take 2 shots, so we're going to be able to tell if the Charioteer starts shooting the Emil. Domsius tearing it around the corner, over 9,000 damage, 10 kills in +2 matchmaking against higher tiered tanks. Domsius has done it all, but they haven't managed to kill the Charioteer, and the Charioteer shuts down our hero. Otherwise, they probably would have got even more experience for surviving the battle. But you know what? Job done. 10 kills in that bottom tier tank. Over I think it was 10,000 damage we saw with that final shot in an XM57. And look, guys, irrelevant of how filthy this tank is, this is still an absolute banger of a replay. So just how much base experience is it? This is the highest base experience anyone's able to do so far during the year. and I'm almost certain that no one's going to be able to top this. This was 2,721 base experience. And no, don't think that that's with a premium account. With the premium account, that would have been 50% on top of that, which would go into your account service record as the highest probably that Domitius has ever been able to get. This was their first ace tanker, a Pools medal for getting 10 kills, all the more impressive against those high tier vehicles. The Halonen's medal for destroying at least 2 enemy vehicles in one battle, which were 2 tiers higher than the vehicle. That's a hard thing to be able to get now with the changed matchmaking. And who would have guessed, a high caliber for doing 4 times the damage of what their tier 10 tanks were able to do. And even though they spent 104,000 credits on ammunition, when you do this much in a premium tank, you still make 191,000. So no wonder people are so liberal with firing gold rounds on the XM57. And you know one thing I just noticed that's insane about this tank? And that is the gold rounds only cost 4,800 credits. That's incredibly cheap for a round that hits for 630. Wargaming's premium pricing sometimes is hilarious. If you play an LT432, for example, you're paying 3,200 credits to do 180 damage. So no wonder that so many people are being very liberal with the gold rounds on the XM57. So the XM57, there's a reason why it has the best win ratio difference of any tier 8 tank destroyer inside the game, and why, irrelevant of it being slightly new and only released this year, we're already seeing it as one of the most played tier 8 tank destroyers in World of Tanks. So Domitius J, congratulations to you on what I'm calling the highest experience game outside of a Churchill III in 2025. But you know what? If any of you can prove me wrong and upload a base experience game, which, should we say, there's not more than one disconnect in the battle between now and the end of the year, then upload it and I'll definitely feature it on the channel as well. So Domitius, thank you so much for uploading your incredible game on the awesome what-record.com website. And again, in the lead up to Christmas, if any of you have gigantic games of World of Tanks, then please do upload them as well, and to stand a chance of being featured on the channel. Anyway, that's it for today, ladies and gents. Hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And let me know in the comments down below which tank has given you your highest experience game this year. And if you're watching this video as it goes live on Monday, I'm going live all day on twitch.tv/QuickyBaby with some brand new drops. So come and get them while they're hot. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.